Hey Meeple people, and on today's vlog, we're going to be playing Three Sisters by Motor City Gameworks and 25th Century Games. Let's get into it! Alright Meeple people, we're going to go ahead and get into Three Sisters, and without further ado, Sarah, will you show us how to play Three Sisters?
Certainly.
Alright, here we go!
Hi everybody. So Three Sisters is a 1 to 4 player roll and write game. This is by the same designers of Fleet the Dice game, which is one of my all-time favorite games and my favorite roll and write game ever. So it's by the same designers. It's very similar, but this one has a totally different theme. Fleet the Dice game is about having a fleet of fishing vessels, whereas Three Sisters is about gardening. But it plays in ways that will seem familiar. Not terribly similar, but at least familiar. In this game, we are going to be rolling and drafting these dice right here. So at the start of a round, a player is going to roll all the dice here and group them together by number. So in this case here, we've got 4 different groups because we have 4 different numbers. But if we had this, for example, then we'd only have 3 different groups. Starting with Farmer Edith on the rondelle over here, we're going to place the lowest value die there, and then we're going to continue placing dice around the rondelle until we run out of dice. If I had 2 dice of the same value or more, then they would both go in the same location. So in this case here, we place all the dice on the board here, and then we move Farmer Edith to the end of where the dice are. What's going to happen next is each player in turn order will draft one of these dice, and you're kind of picking 2 different things here. When you're drafting a die, you're picking the value of the die itself, which is going to let you access one of these sort of subplots in your garden. And it's going to allow you to plant or water in that section. So if I draft this one here, which the pumpkins are 1s, so if I draft that one here, I can plant or water in zone 1 of my garden. I'm also, in addition to the number that I'm looking at, I'm also looking at the spot on the rondelle where that die is coming from, because I also get to do the rondelle action that is paired with that die. There's, I think, 5 unique rondelle actions, and I'll talk about those a little bit more in just a minute. So on a turn, a player will draft a die, and they will do their plant or water action, and then they will do their rondelle action, and then it becomes the next player's turn. That player drafts the die, they do the same thing. They plant or water in the section of the die that they drafted. They do the rondelle action of their choice, and you can do those in any order. So if I wanted to, for whatever reason, do the rondelle action first and then plant or water with my numbered die, I could do that. After all players have drafted a die, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the remaining die that are left on the rondelle, and every player gets to do the lowest value die left. So in this case here, after each player gets their own individual turns, we also get to plant or water in section 3. And because this is on the plant or water section of the board, we get to plant or water again, and that'll be in section 3. After we resolve the dice, we will resolve an end of round event, and then it will become the next round. And then the first player token will pass. The next player will roll up and allocate all of the dice, starting again with Farmer Edith's spot and moving. They'll move Farmer Edith to the end of the round, and then again, each player will draft a die and perform the plant or water action for that die, plus their rondelle action. Once every player has done that, then we finish the round, and so on, until we've played through 8 rounds of the game. So the reason that we're drafting these dice is because we have a garden that we are attempting to work in, and there's a lot of different areas we can work in our garden. We have the main section of our garden here, which is where plants are going to grow. There are 3 different types of plants, and they are referred to as the Three Sisters. So there's corn, which are these tall columns right here. There's beans, which grow next to the corn, and then there's squash, which grows sort of like on the ground. And there's a neat little bit in the rules that tell us about this method of gardening. This is actually a method of gardening that indigenous peoples have used for a very long time, because these 3 types of plants work really well together. So the corn gives the beans something to climb up, and the Squash provides ground cover, which helps keep the weeds at bay. And then all three of the plants work together to put nutrients into the soil or nitrogen into the air or that kind of thing. So they work really, really well together. They have like this nice symbiotic relationship going on. And we're going to try to replicate that in our garden by planting that corn, those beans, and those squash. And they'll interact with each other as we play through the game. For example, you cannot plant beans until the bottom 2 sections of your corn have grown. So if there's no corn for the beans to trail up, then there can't be any beans. So that's the garden section of our sort of player boards. We also have this perennials section down here. There are several different kinds of perennials, and the way that we access this is primarily through the squash. So the squash grows around the outside edge of the garden here, and in between every 2 squash, there is a perennial. So for example, between this squash and this squash, there's a tulip. Between this squash and this squash, there's a hydrangea, and so on. What happens is no matter what zone the squash are in, if you complete squash so that both of the squash on either side of a perennial is completed, then you get to mark off a section in that perennials track. So if I finish this one here and this one here is finished, then I cross this off and I get to mark off something in the tulip section of the perennials. You'll acquire different bonuses or resources to use as you play through this. You may also get some like bonus actions or that kind of thing. And at the end, if you completely max out the track, you'll get some points at the end of the game here. So that's this sheet right here. On this sheet right here, we have some sort of companion things happening. We have an apiary, which is kind of like a bee colony. So this is where the bees live. And in this track here, we're going to start at the bottom and we're going to go up. And as we go up, we'll get some bonuses and stuff like that. But eventually what's going to happen is we'll split off into these sort of 3 subgroups right here. And you can continue to go up on those to get bonuses and end of game points as well. In addition to the apiary, we also have a sort of grove of fruit trees here. There are 4 different kinds of fruit trees. We have apple, peaches, blackberries, and raspberries. And I guess these are not necessarily trees, but we have this fruit, and each of the fruit is going to get us points or resources or abilities as we play through the game. So we cross these out and we'll get those points, or we get to maybe water if we do the peaches, or we get goods if we do the raspberries, or etc. We also have over here, we have this shed right here, and we can access the shed at various points in the game in order to cross off things that are going to get us end of game points, and then also usually they'll get us some ability that we can use throughout the game as well. There's a section over here where we can keep notes because it is a somewhat complex game, so we're going to be trying to keep things straight. So there's a little section here to make notes if you need it. There's our final score tallies there. And then down here we have our goods track and our compost track. So we're going to be collecting goods. When you finish squash, you'll collect goods, and then some other times in the game we'll collect goods anytime you see that red box. So when I do these apiary sections or when I collect raspberries, I'll get goods and I'll mark those goods off on this track down here. Throughout the game, we'll have these stars. If you ever cross out a star either on your goods track or maybe somewhere else in the game, then you'll get to cross off something extra as well. And then finally, our compost, we're going to be filling our compost section in as we play through the game with little dots, and you can cross those dots off to add or subtract 1 or 2 pips from the die that you draft. So there is a little bit of dice manipulation that you're able to do through your compost section here. So now that you guys know what our sheets look like, I'll talk to you about the rondelle and how we're actually going to do stuff on our sheets. So like I said, on your turn, you draft a die and you're going to get to plant or water in a section based on the number that you drafted. But there's also actions that are available to us on the rondelle. So there's 2 sections where we could do a fruit or apiary. That would just allow us to cross off 1 spot in our fruit or apiary section. There's also the plant or water. So in addition to the plant or water action that you get from a die, you would also get to do it another time here at this location. There's 2 shed time actions. That's going to let us cross off something in the shed section of our player aids. There is this 1 compost and 4 goods. If you go there, you just get to get a compost and cross 4 goods off on your goods track. And then finally, there's the farmer's market. And the farmer's market is going to relate to this little chart right here and the number of goods that you've collected throughout the course of the game. If you haven't collected any, then if you visit the farmer's market, you'll just get a compost. But the more that you've collected throughout the game, the better the rewards are when you visit the farmer's market. So that's the rondelle, and those are the actions that you'll take in addition to planting or watering. And then at the end of each round, we will also have actions that may allow us to visit the farmer's market or take a shed action or that kind of thing. So I think that's like kind of a short, condensed version of how to play. Would you like to try it, Nick?
Cool. Yes, we shall get into it and play. So, yeah, we'll see you guys mid-game. Toodles! Alright, Meeple people, we're back, and we are at the mid-game of Three Sisters, and this game goes by really fast, I think. It's just something where we mentioned, because these are the same people that made Fleet the Dice game, and in that game I feel like you can explore more, so maybe replayability is not as high, but in this one everything's going by like super quick. And the turns, after you learn how to play the game, it's going like boom, 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 boom. And the replayability is that because you get less time to do more things, which, if that makes sense now. Sarah, let us know some of your thoughts on the game so far.
Hi there. So, yeah, I've started planting in 1, 2, 3 sections of my garden. And I'm trying to, keep to those sections for the most part. I'll probably start planting in one other section before the end of the game, but I'm trying to stick to kind of those 3 plots so that I can grow my vegetables in those plots the best as possible. I feel like if I diversify too much, I'm not going to be able to do as well. So I'm trying to sort of stick to those 3 zones of my garden. I've also harvested some fruit. I've got some blackberries, which are going to get me points, plus I have this mason jar, which is something I got from my shed. So the mason jar itself is just worth a point, but then it also lets me get a good every time I harvest blackberries. So normally blackberries would only be worth points at the end of the game, and they wouldn't get you any goods, but my mason jars give me goods every time I harvest blackberries as well. So I've gotten to do that a little bit, and then I've also harvested enough raspberries to where I've gotten quite a good amount of goods from it, and then I'll also get some end of game points there. And I'm working on one perennial track in particular, my hyacinths. That's also gotten me quite a few goods, and if I can complete it by the end of the game, it'll get me 10 points. I've done a little bit in my apiary, and I'm at the point where I'm in the subdivided section up here, and I've been able to get some points from that. So I'd like to continue to push here if I can. I haven't really interacted very much with my shed at all this game. I do have, like I said, those mason jars. I also have a rain barrel, which lets me water an additional time after it rains. But so far, I'm really concentrated on I would say mostly on my fruit section with my garden and my apiary coming in the next 2 spots. How's it going over there, Nick?
Well, let me tell you. I am working more on my garden in this game. Like I've said before, Sarah talked. There's a lot to do in the game, but you don't have enough time for all of it, so you have to kind of focus down on what you want to do. So I'm focusing on just making my squashes and my corn and my beans grow as much as possible, because I also have a casserole dish in my shed. That was weird to put a casserole dish in your shed, but it gets me a point for every 2 beans that I had, and that could get me some points. It's just a new way I'm trying out. I feel like Sarah's probably going to crush me in the face in this game, but yeah.
If I do, it'll make up for the last time we played this game in which he crushed me in the face. So
it was all about the fruit.
It was all about he had over 100 points and I had 80 something points.
I had the monopoly on fruit.
If we do a role reversal and I crush him this time, well, oh well.
You've shown your strategies. But yeah, I like it. It's different than Fleet the Dice game, but it's also not similar. You get a similar feel, but not so much of a similar game, which is nice because if they were just like almost like just a reskin and that was it, it would kind of been disappointing. But this is this
Well, and
is
also I feel like there's not much about Fleet that didn't work well. So if they would have just kind of like rehashed Fleet, I'd have been like, but why? Because it worked. I understand like second editions of things if you realize something was broken or you really wanted to like clean something up or further develop something or whatever that wasn't well done the first time around. But I feel like Fleet was like a pretty solid game to begin with. So there's not a lot I feel like could have been improved or changed to the good if they would have just like readjusted Fleet the Dice game. That's just my thoughts on it. I think the one thing that was maybe like any kind of broken is the coins track in the Fleet the Dice game, the base game, but I feel like they sort of fixed that with the little mini expansion that they came out with. So, in my opinion, there wasn't like enough fixable about Fleet the Dice game to justify redoing that completely. So I'm glad that they went in a bit of a different direction with this one, because if they would have just redone Fleet the Dice game, I would have been like, but why? It was fine the way that it was for the most part.
all right. Well, I think we're gonna go ahead and jump right back into Three Sisters and see who the winner and loser is. Spoiler: I think Sarah's gonna win
I don't know.
because I'm trying new things out. I think I might win, but I don't know. All right. Well, we'll see you guys in a sec. Toodles. Welcome back, Meeple people. And so Sarah won. Sarah beat my face off, but not too badly. My strategy wasn't totally like garbage. So my cat disagrees. He's like, "You suck, Dad."
He says the only strategy that is any good is putting food in my dish.
Yep, food in the dish will get cat's favor. That should be some kind of promo. but but yeah. So Sarah won, and this is a lot of strategies in this game, a lot of ways you can go, a lot of paths you can take. This is a very interesting and nice spiritual successor to Fleet the Dice game. Sarah, you got something for us before I get into my bit?
So I love Fleet the Dice game so much. I'm not a huge roll and write fan, but I flippin' love Fleet the Dice game. I like this too, but I think I like Fleet better. And maybe over time I will grow to like this more than I currently do, but I don't think that I will ever like this as much or more than I like Fleet the Dice game. They're really similar in a lot of areas. They feel very similar. I think the gameplay is different enough to where it's not the same experience, but they feel similar. But I think of the two, I'd rather play Fleet, which is a little unfortunate because I prefer the theme of this. The Fleet the Dice game is about having a fleet of fishing vessels, and it's all about fishing, and I don't really care about fishing, and I don't care about gardening either, but I do think it's a more pleasant sort of vibe than fishing. So I think the theme of this one is more attractive to me, but the gameplay of Fleet is better in my opinion. Not even necessarily better. I just think that I prefer it a little bit more. I like this one a lot though. I would say if you like roll and write games that are a little on the heavier side, if you like combo-tastic games,
Yes.
I would say definitely give this one a try if you can get a hold of it. I do apologize, I don't know if this one is going to be in retail. I would assume since 25th Century Games picked it up, I would assume it's going to be available in retail, but we did kickstart this. So yeah, I like Nick said, there's a kind of a lot of different areas where you could sort of explore. And I feel like you do better in the game. You're better rewarded by going deep into a few areas as opposed to going shallow in many areas. So I think because you can't really go deep in every area or even like half of the areas in each game, I think that there is probably quite a bit of replayability here because you can only go deep on a few different strategies each game. And because there are so many, then it will take you a while to go deep on all of them. Um, I I'm pretty happy with the production of it. So it was a Kickstarter, like I said, and they did do some things because they like met or exceeded their funding goals. Like for example, I think this pumpkin shape as the number one on the die, I think that was like a not a stretch goal, but like the multicolored dice that like they've got like the orangish sort of, and then like the pumpkin and stuff like that. I think that was like a stretch goal and everything. The production is great. The only complaint I have at all about like the way it looks or feels or anything like that is I wish that these sheets were just a little bit maybe lighter in the background colors, because if you use a pencil on these sheets, which is my preference, because then I can erase. If you use a pencil, it's hard to see, like it's just hard to see the marks if you don't use a bright bold pen. And I feel like if the background was like a little bit lighter tone, then it would probably be easier. And then again, not a huge deal, but in the shed section, there are areas where the points are like here, and then like the thing that it actually does is below that. And some of it is not a big deal. It's very easy to tell, like the new tractor, for example, like here's all the points right here. There's the picture of the thing, easy peasy, right? But some of these other ones, like this casserole dish right here, it's a little sometimes hard for me to be like, okay, which box is it that relates to this? Is it this one or this one? And so like for some of these other ones, I just think the spacing is a little weird. Like they put this pitchfork one, they put this like in the hay pile. But again, then it's like, okay, well, is that the mulch checkbox or the pitchfork checkbox? And you have to kind of like look at other ones to determine like, okay, well, all of the check marks are like on the bottom. So this one here is the pitchfork, not the mulch. And I feel like they did that so that this section here would be like the art would match up. Like, right, this one's the pitchfork. So they wanted the pitchfork to be like in this hay pile. And I just wish this section here was just a tiny bit easier to sort of like read what's going on. Other than that, though, I don't have any complaints. What did you think, Nick?
My thought, I like combo-tastic games, especially this one. The rain, you can kind of set up for when the rain comes, and it's very beneficial.
Rain waters your whole garden.
Yeah, rain waters the entire garden, so everything you've been working up to planting will will grow.
And it
and
rains
possibly
at the ends of rounds 2, 4, and 8.
Yeah, rounds 2, 4, and 8, you get some rain. I think I like this more than Fleet the Dice game, as Sarah's eyes
Turn off the
bulging.
camera. I have to perform violence.
Help! If I gone missing, then you know what happened. I got shoved in a fleet box. But I like this more just because I like the games where you concentrate and just focus on, and when you put your mind and mental effort towards something, that you kind of get rewarded for it. Not saying that Fleet the Dice game doesn't do that. I still like Fleet the Dice game. It's just as different. I think this one Three Sisters takes a lot more mental effort and concentration, which I like, but it does get exhausting, so I wouldn't really want to do that all the time. So, and I'm not saying Fleet doesn't, it's just this is more to a degree where I enjoy, and Fleet's a little less like, okay, everyone rolls, or someone rolls, they pick, I pick. It's a little easier to kind of follow along what's going on. If you get distracted while you're concentrating in Three Sisters and someone's like, hey, I got a rules question, shut up! I'm thinking over here. And if someone does that to you, then you're like,
We played a game where I taught a couple of other people how to play. So we were playing a 4-player game, and I was in the middle of like trying to track everything that was going on in my turn, and somebody was like, I have a rules question, blah 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 blah, and I was like, just give me a minute. And then I was continue to try to do my thing. And like 3 seconds later, they were like, okay, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, can you please just give me a minute? And they were like, okay. So they like waited a couple more seconds and I continued to try to like track my turn and concentrate and everything. And then they asked me a third question. And I was just like, I almost lost my temper just a little bit because I was trying really hard to like concentrate what I was doing so I didn't lose track of anything that I was supposed to do on my turn or like get, get shorted something that I was supposed to get. And they were like, sorry, I thought you were like finished. And I was like, no, I needed like time to like sort this out. And it was very much like if you break your concentration in the middle of a chain of combos, it can be really hard to kind of like work out what you've already done and what still needs to occur. And that if you're trying to like have a conversation while you're playing, or if you are trying to teach other people while you play or that kind of thing, just be prepared for maybe a little bit of annoyance or frustration if your concentration gets broken and you lose track of what you're doing.
So when you're teaching this game, just be mindful. Uh, you're probably not gonna win. Not saying you should try to like crush face when you're teaching, but at the same time, like just be mindful. Maybe throw that out there, like, hey, if someone's concentrating, don't interrupt their thought process. But if only that would actually work. But I really enjoyed the combo ness. I'm not a real big roll and write fan. I enjoy roll and writes, but not as much as like everyone else right now in the industry and hobby is. Um, but I do enjoy Three Sisters and I do enjoy Fleet the Dice. But I like this one. I am glad it is an addition to our collection and that we backed it on Kickstarter. So yeah, if this is in retail, you should go ahead and check it out. And we'll leave a link to the BGG and maybe even the link to wherever else this is in the video's description. But
as far as I
yeah.
know too, the copies that are if they're going to be copies in retail, as far as I know, there isn't anything that came with the Kickstarter that won't be in the retail edition. Like the dice with the pumpkins on it, or like, like the cut out pieces here. Like I think all of that comes standard in the retail edition as well. The only thing that might not come in the retail edition is there was like a little bonus pack of like promos and stuff like that. I haven't
Like
even
maybe a mini expansion. Maybe
maybe I haven't even looked into what it is exactly, but even that might be in the retail editions. I'm not entirely sure. I know that when they ran the Kickstarter, they said like, here's our stretch goals, here's what we're hoping to do, and then I think they said like if they met all of those things, like that was just going to be standard. Everybody who ever got a copy of the game, I think was going to get like the exact same stuff. So even if you get a retail version, it should have all of the nice, the cutout pawns and like the nice multicolored dye and stuff like that.
Cool. So this was our vlog of Three Sisters by 25th Century Games and Motor City Games.
Motor City Gameworks.
Motor City Gameworks. My apologies. But yeah, we will see you all next time in our next video. Subscribe if you haven't so you can stay up to date on all of our cool stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. Toodles!